Welcome back, freelance friends. Thank you for joining me again. Today we are going to discuss strategies for juggling multiple projects and or multiple clients as a freelancer. I am told that I am very good at this, and I know that for some people it's a struggle. So I thought that I'd give you some tips from my lens. Not that my recommendations are perfect, but hopefully you will glean a little bit of something that will help you in your own work. So if you've been freelancing for any length of time, you know that the word free is a bit of a misnomer. Freedom, yes, but free time, not so much. If you're like me, as a freelancer, you may be busier than you were in your full-time role if you did at one point work in a full-time role. As freelancers, we often juggle a lot at once because freelancing has its ups and downs, it ebbs and flows. And I know that I personally like to take advantage of the up times when work is flowing. And while I do occasionally turn projects down, I do try to say yes, especially to those clients who trust me as their go-to person, the ones that I generally enjoy working with, and I've established a cadence of working with them. I do try to support them when they reach out, which sometimes keeps me very busy, thankfully. Now, when you're managing multiple clients, projects, and deadlines, sometimes across different time zones and industries, it may feel like you're running your own mini agency of one. I know at least that's the way that I often feel. And while there are some exciting components to that, it can also be a little overwhelming if you don't have systems in place. So after years of balancing agency contracts, direct client work, and my personal life, which I try to maintain, I've learned a few strategies that help me stay organized, focused, and mostly sane while juggling multiple projects at once. The first thing that I would recommend is starting with a big picture view. Before thinking about diving into your daily to-do list, take a step back and zoom out. I suggest that at the start of every week, I do this on Sunday night. And I know it doesn't sound like a fun activity to do on a Sunday night, but it really does set me up for the week ahead. I review all of my active projects and know what's coming up that week or maybe even the next week. Anything that's coming up in the not so distant future. So that way I am looking at the immediate deadlines, but also what's on the horizon. I do this because it helps prevent that surprise feeling when something urgent suddenly pops up and really throws your balance off. I actually keep a color-coded calendar. I know it's crazy, but I like to color code things. And this helps me glance at my calendar and know which meeting aligns to which client so that I know even what computer I need to be on, but of course, what I need to prep for that time. I can take a look at all of my major deliverable dates and set any reminders that are necessary. Seeing everything at a glance really does help me make smart decisions about when I should say yes to an offer for work, when I need to better negotiate a deadline, and when to block off focus time before the week even begins, depending on what I see those upcoming deadlines and deliverables to be. Second, I recommend breaking projects into manageable chunks. Chunking really works, especially when you're working on multiple projects, because it's easy to feel scattered. And sometimes you feel like you're not really getting anything accomplished because you're simply quickly jumping from one project to the other without really finishing anything. And I've done some of that, and I've learned that that's a strategy that is just not sustainable. Breaking large projects into smaller, actionable steps will likely keep you more grounded and help you maintain momentum. So, for instance, instead of just jumping on, sometimes it isn't possible to create, in my case, the whole training deck in one sitting. Because of that, I will chunk that task into parts that align with the time frame that I have to work on it on that day or during that week. And maybe it's creating the outline for the content. Maybe it's gathering visuals. Maybe it's drafting the slides. Maybe it's editing the flow and then finalizing the design. But those will all potentially be different tasks for me if I don't have a full block where I can do all of them together. This process also makes things feel more achievable because you're dealing with smaller chunks. It's easier to check them off, and that keeps your motivation high. Third, you want to set clear boundaries. And I've talked about boundaries in other videos. I truly feel like they are the key to success. And you have to consider both boundaries with your client and with yourself. Because when you're juggling several clients, sometimes all of their requests sound urgent. And we can only do so much as one freelancer. So it's really crucial to manage those expectations early on and make it a habit to communicate realistic expectations, realistic timelines up front, and be transparent when your plate is full. You've heard me say that recently I did have to turn down some work because I knew that I just couldn't realistically get it done in a high quality and timely manner. And most clients will appreciate that honesty, especially when they know that when they do get to work with you, they're going to get good work. But boundaries just don't stop with those aspects. You also need to set those personal boundaries, whatever they are for you, whether it be that you're no longer going to check your Slack or your team messages after 7 p.m., that you're not going to log on to your work email on the weekends. That was a big one for me. I do log on the weekends, but I do have one day where I do not look at any of my messages or any of my emails related to work. I just need to unplug. Other folks will just schedule built-in breaks throughout the day because sometimes they're necessary. You need to look at boundaries as a productivity tool and not just a self-care one, because when you establish appropriate boundaries, they're going to help you stay focused, they're going to help you maintain your energy, and they're going to help you to continue to deliver that high quality of work. Fourth, you're going to want to use tools that help keep everything in sync. That really does help with your system. The right tools can make or break your workflow. So I am pretty simple. I do use a variety of tools. Some of them I've mentioned in some of the other episodes, but I have started using ClickUp for project tracking. I found that that helps me. Prior to that, I was just using the checklist in Outlook to help keep me organized. I do like ClickUp a little bit better. I use Google Calendar for my scheduling. I have all of my different events that feed into my Google Calendar. As I said, I have it color coded so that I can easily tell where I'm supposed to be with who. I also used to use Toggle for time tracking. As you all know, time tracking is a big thing when you're a freelancer, especially if you do your projects hourly. I am going to say that I have stopped using Toggle and gone back to my old Excel spreadsheet because for me, that's what works. And as I keep mentioning, you have to find what works for you. You may like Toggle, you may like a simple Excel spreadsheet. I find that the simple spreadsheet works for me because I keep it consistent. And the goal for any tool that you use is to create a system that helps you see your workload clearly across all your clients so nothing slips through the cracks, because obviously that's not a good thing. So in summary, the tool doesn't matter as much as your commitment to using it consistently, because the best system is the one that you're actually going to open and use every day. Fifth, I struggle with this one. Leave space for flexibility. Freelancing rarely goes according to plan. Clients reschedule, projects expand, new opportunities come up. So I wish that I could tell you that I never pack my schedule to 100%, but sometimes I feel like I'm pretty close to that mark. The experts recommend that you plan your schedule up to about 80-85% so that you have some room for unexpected changes or creative recovery time. I think it's a great idea because we all know that if you do have that extra space, you can use it to help build your creative endeavors related to your freelance business, refuel, or connect with others so that burnout stays at bay. Last, nurture your relationships, not just your deadlines. I think this one is fairly self-obvious, but it is probably worth mentioning anyway, is that sometimes when we're stretched between multiple projects, it's easy for us to only focus on the deliverable. But that isn't going to likely make you a successful long-term freelancer, because a lot of freelancing is about building the relationships with the agencies, with the clients, and with the collaborators. So it is really important for you to stay connected, for you to stay communicative. Make it a point to check in. Share your wins. That is great. The client will be excited and it makes you look good. And show appreciation for the work and your clients. It's simple, but it really does strengthen trust and often leads to future work. Because as a freelancer, your reputation is your referral system. So staying connected and dependable will pay off far beyond the project that you're on. In summary, juggling multiple projects as a freelancer isn't about doing everything at once. It's about doing the right things at the right time with intention. When you organize your workload, set clear boundaries, and establish those systems that support your focus and your flexibility, you are creating space for your best work to really shine through across every client, every project, every opportunity that you work on. Freelancing is a bit of a balancing act at times, but it is a beautiful mix of creativity, autonomy, and trust. When you manage it well, it's one of the most rewarding ways to work in my experience. If you found this episode helpful, please like and subscribe. I hope to see you on a future episode. Take care until then. Bye-bye.